Once upon a time, in a small village nestled between the mountains and a river, lived a boy named Arif. He had a dream of flying the biggest, most beautiful kite in the village festival. But every time he tried, his kite would get tangled in the trees or fall flat on the ground. Arif grew frustrated and wanted to give up. One day, an old man saw Arif, sitting by the river, staring at his broken kite. He approached and said, "Why do you look so sad, young one?" Arif said, "I want to fly my kite in the festival, but it never works. No matter how hard I try, it fails." The old man smiled and said, "Let me tell you a secret. When I was young, I also struggled with my kite. But I learned that to make it soar high, you must be patient and understand the wind." Arif listened, as the old man explained, "The wind is like life. Sometimes it's strong, sometimes it's gentle. You can't control it, but you can learn to work with it. Don't rush. Wait for the right moment, and your kite will rise." Taking the old man's advice, Arif practiced every day, not just rushing to fly his kite but observing the wind, waiting for the perfect gust. Finally, on the day of the festival, when the wind felt just right, Arif let his kite go. It soared higher than ever, dancing in the sky. The whole village cheered, and Arif learned an important lesson, that patience and understanding are the keys to success. Moral of the story: sometimes, success doesn't come from trying harder but from being patient and learning to work with the circumstances around us. One sunny afternoon, Jack was walking along the beach. He loved exploring new places, always looking for the next adventure. Today, however, something strange caught his eye. Out in the ocean, far beyond the waves, he saw an island that wasn't there before. It seemed to be floating. Curiosity got the better of him, and Jack found an old boat on the shore. He hopped in, paddling toward the mysterious floating island. As he approached, Jack realized this was no ordinary island. The trees were tall and glowing, and the air seemed to shimmer with magic. When he reached the shore, Jack jumped out of the boat and started exploring. Suddenly, a voice spoke from the trees. "Welcome, young traveler. You have found the floating island of knowledge." Jack turned to see a tall, wise-looking bird perched on a branch. The bird had feathers that sparkled like the stars. "I am the guardian of the island," said the bird, "and this is a place where you can learn anything you wish to know." Excited, Jack asked the bird, "Can you teach me how to solve difficult problems? I always get stuck when things get hard." The bird flapped its wings and motioned for Jack to follow. The first lesson is to always remain calm when faced with challenges. Let's start with something fun, solving a puzzle. The bird led Jack to a series of glowing stones arranged in a circle. "This puzzle will teach you patience and focus," said the bird. Jack, eager to try, began moving the stones one by one. It wasn't easy, and at first, he wanted to give up. But remembering the bird's words, Jack stayed calm and eventually solved the puzzle. As soon as the puzzle was complete, the ground beneath Jack glowed, and a hidden staircase appeared, leading deeper into the island. Jack continued his journey, learning new lessons at every step. He learned about teamwork when he had to work with the island's animals to cross a high bridge, and about determination when he climbed a steep hill to reach the island's peak. At the top, Jack found a crystal that shone brightly. The bird appeared again and said, "This crystal is a symbol of all the knowledge you've gained. Take it with you, and it will remind you to always stay calm, be patient, work with others, and never give up." Jack smiled, holding the crystal in his hands. With his green t-shirt fluttering in the wind and his messy hair sticking up, he felt proud of all he had learned. He climbed back into his boat and paddled home, knowing that the lessons from the floating island of knowledge would help him in all his future adventures. Moral of the story: stay calm when faced with challenges, be patient, and always keep learning. One day, Jack and his best friend Jenny were at the train station, excited for a fun trip to visit Jenny's grandma. As they boarded the train, something unusual happened. Instead of stopping at familiar places, the train began to speed through strange landscapes, purple fields, sparkling rivers, and even tunnels filled with glowing lights. Jack and Jenny looked at each other, wide-eyed with excitement. "I think we got on the wrong train," Jack whispered, holding his backpack tightly. Jenny giggled, "I think it's the right train for an adventure." The train suddenly stopped at a mysterious station with a sign that read, "Adventureland." When they stepped off, they found themselves in a magical place where everything seemed possible: talking animals, giant candy trees, and even a roller coaster that went into the clouds. As they explored, they met a wise owl who told them, "This train only comes for those ready to discover something new. But remember, you must find the golden ticket if you want to return home." Determined, Jack and Jenny set off to find the golden ticket. Along the way, they helped a lion find his roar, solved a puzzle to open a treasure chest, and even flew on a giant kite over the land. After many fun challenges, they finally discovered the golden ticket hidden inside a huge candy apple tree. With the golden ticket in hand, they rushed back to the train station just in time. The train whisked them back to the real world, where everything seemed ordinary again. But Jack and Jenny knew they had just experienced something truly magical. As they arrived at Jenny's grandma's house, Jenny grinned and said, "I think that was the best train ride ever." Moral of the story: sometimes, the unexpected can lead to the most magical adventures. Always be open to new discoveries. Jack, a curious boy with a love for plants, lived in a busy city. His small yellow t-shirt often got dirt stains from his daily adventures in the park. One day, while walking home from school, Jack found a small, hidden door in the alleyway behind his house. The door was covered in ivy, almost as if it had been forgotten for years. Unable to resist his curiosity, Jack carefully pushed the door open. To his surprise, behind the door was a beautiful, magical garden. The garden was unlike anything Jack had ever seen. It wasn't just filled with ordinary flowers and trees. Each plant seemed to have a special glow, and the fruits hanging from the trees sparkled like gems. As Jack wandered deeper into the garden, he met an elderly gardener who tended to the magical plants. The gardener smiled at Jack and said, "This garden is not just for beauty, young one. Every plant here grows with a purpose. If you listen closely, they can teach you valuable lessons." Intrigued, Jack stayed to help the gardener. He learned that each plant represented something important. One plant taught him patience, another taught him kindness, and a tree with silver leaves taught him the value of hard work. Day by day, Jack worked in the magical garden, learning from the plants and the gardener. He began to realize that the lessons from the garden were not just about plants, they were lessons for life. With every fruit he picked and every flower he nurtured, Jack grew wiser and more thoughtful. After many weeks of learning, the gardener gave Jack a special seed as a parting gift. "Plant this in your own world," the gardener said. "It will remind you of the lessons you've learned here." Jack returned to the busy city, but he was no longer just the boy in the yellow t-shirt with messy hair. He had grown, not just in knowledge but in wisdom. He planted the seed in a small pot in his room. And as it grew, it reminded him of the magical garden and the important lessons he would carry with him forever. Moral of the story: growth isn't just about getting bigger. It's about learning important lessons that help us become better people. Jack and Jenny loved solving puzzles and learning new things. One day, while exploring their grandpa's attic, they discovered an old map tucked inside a book. Jack and Jenny quickly realized this was no ordinary map. It was a treasure map. "Do you think it's real?" Jack asked, his eyes wide with excitement. Jenny grinned, "There's only one way to find out. Let's go." The map led them through a series of clues, hidden around their village. At each stop, they encountered fun challenges that tested their knowledge. First, they had to solve a tricky riddle at the library. Then they decoded secret messages at the school. And finally, they cracked a math puzzle hidden at the town's clock tower. With each clue, they learned something new, whether it was about history, science, or math. The final clue brought them to the park, where an old chest was buried beneath a tree. When they dug it up and opened it, they didn't find gold, but something even better: notebooks, and a message that read, "The greatest treasure is knowledge." Keep learning. Jack and Jenny beamed. They realized that the real treasure wasn't about what they found. It was about everything they learned along the way. Moral of the story: knowledge is the most valuable treasure. Learning is a journey, venture, and fun. One sunny afternoon, Jack and his friend Jenny decided on an adventure. They wanted to explore the big forest near there. They packed some snacks, water, and their favorite compass, and off they went. At first, exciting. They saw tall trees, colorful birds, and even some playful squirrels. Jenny were having so much fun that they didn't notice how far they had walked. They realized they couldn't see the path back. "Uh-oh," said Jenny. "I think we're lost." Jack wasn't worried. "Don't worry, Jenny, have the compass. It will help us find back." But when Jack pulled out the compass, something strange happened. The needle started spinning in all directions. Jack and Jenny didn't know which way to go. Suddenly, they heard a rustling noise in the bushes. Out came a friendly-looking deer. The deer seemed to be pointing with its head, as if telling them to follow it. "Maybe the deer knows the way," Jenny said excitedly. They followed the deer deeper into the forest. It led them to a sparkling stream where they filled their water bottles. Along the way, they saw beautiful flowers. And even a rainbow. It felt magical. After a long walk, the deer stopped at a big old tree. Jack and Jenny looked closely and found a hidden path that led them straight back to the village. They were so happy and thankful for their new animal friend. As they reached home, Jack smiled and said, "Even when things get tricky, adventures can always lead to something amazing." Moral of the story: sometimes, getting lost can lead to unexpected discoveries and new friends. Always be brave and enjoy the journey. One Saturday, Jack decided to visit the old tower on the edge of town. His friend Max had told him it was haunted by squirrels and that anyone who climbed it would hear strange noises. Jack was ready for a thrill and, hopefully, a good laugh. As soon as he stepped into the tower, he noticed a floorboard squeak and wobble. Curious, Jack pushed down on it, and suddenly, he was catapulted into a little trapdoor that bounced him up like a spring. Laughing, Jack dusted himself off and climbed a spiraling staircase. On each floor, Jack encountered something odd. On the second floor, a little squirrel in a top hat was sipping from a tiny teacup. "Fancy a nut?" it seemed to say as it chattered at him. On the third floor, Jack found an old mirror that made his nose look like a banana and his ears like saucers. Finally, he reached the top and found a funny old chest. Inside was a collection of silly hats. Jack tried them on, each hat funnier than the last. A chicken hat, a wizard hat, even a hat with fake googly eyes that wobbled when he moved. He couldn't stop laughing, and when he finally came out of the tower, the squirrels even seemed to give him an approving cheer. Moral of the story: sometimes the best adventures are the ones that make you laugh, reminding us that a little silliness can brighten anyone's day. It was a bright afternoon, and Jack had just finished making his favorite sandwich. A stack of peanut butter, jelly, pickles, and potato chips all squished between two slices of bread. Proudly, he took it outside to enjoy in the sunshine. But just as he was about to take his first bite, he heard a faint rustle. His sandwich had vanished. Jack looked around, only to spot a cheeky squirrel darting up a tree, his sandwich held high. "Hey, that's my lunch," Jack shouted, sprinting after the furry thief. The squirrel, quick as lightning, dashed through bushes, up trees, and under benches, with Jack hot on its tail. The chase led Jack through the park, around a playground, and past a picnic where some birds joined in, hoping for a crumb. Jack tried every trick to get his sandwich back, pretending to ignore the squirrel. Didn't work. Sneaking up from behind also didn't work. And even offering the squirrel a trade with an acorn, which only made it chatter at him. Finally, the squirrel dropped the sandwich right on a pile of autumn leaves. Jack jumped up in victory, grabbed his sandwich, and was about to take a bite, only to hear a familiar rustle. The squirrel was back with a friend. Jack burst into laughter, finally giving the squirrel a little piece of his sandwich as a peace offering. After all, he thought, maybe it was just as hungry as he was. Moral of the story: sometimes, sharing brings more joy than holding on to what's ours. And it can lead to some pretty funny adventures, too.
Ava was a quiet girl who often made gentle, wordless tunes while drawing in her sketchbook. She lived in a small town where every year, the school held a big singing contest. Everyone said it was the most exciting event of the year. Ava loved listening to the performances but had never thought of joining. This year, her music teacher, Mrs. Flores, made a surprise announcement. Each student in our class must participate in the singing contest, she said with a smile. Ava's heart sank. Me? Sing in front of everyone? No way. Ava tried to convince Mrs. Flores to let her skip the contest. But I'm not good at singing, Ava said softly. Nonsense, replied Mrs. Flores. Every voice is special. You just need a little practice. At home, Ava told her mom about the contest. I think you'll do great, sweetheart, her mom said, handing her a cup of warm cocoa. Remember how you used to sing lullabies to your stuffed bear? Ava blushed. That was different. Singing in front of a crowd felt impossible. Even at school, her classmates were excitedly practicing their songs. Ava felt more nervous each day. Then one afternoon, while she was sitting under the big oak tree in her backyard, her pet bird, Chippy, landed on her shoulder. Chirp, chirp. Chippy sang happily, as if encouraging her. Ava smiled and whispered, I wish I could sing as freely as you, Chippy. The next day, Ava decided to give it a try. She started practicing